Good morning, I'm Maiki Oreta and welcome to Industry Beacon, where we shine a light on the trailblazers, the disruptors and the industry leaders shaping our future. And in each episode, we'll explore how they're staying ahead in their respective fields, one industry at a time. Now, the Philippine fintech landscape is evolving at an unprecedented pace. People using phones. Now, from digital payments exceeding targets to the remarkable growth of digital banks, the industry is revolutionizing financial services and driving inclusion across the nation. Today, we're joined by one of its leading voices, Lito Villanueva, as the co-founder and chairman of the Fintech Alliance Philippines and the executive vice president and chief innovations and inclusion officer at RCBC. He offers a wealth of experience and insight into this transformative sector. Together, we'll dive deep into the Philippine fintech revolution and the challenges ahead and how it's shaping the future for Filipinos across all walks of life. Hi, Lito, and thank you for being here with us.
Pleasure to be with you today.
Okay, Lito, talk to us about how we can currently measure the fintech industry in the country. Can you talk to us about the fintech industry in the context of the number of players that we have?
You know, we have seen a 38% growth in terms of number of fintech players in the country for the past 2 years. And in fact, we have surpassed the Philippine Development Plan target, of the current administration. So it means that there is a huge opportunity in practically a lot of foreign investors coming into the country to put in investments into fintech industry.
Mm-hmm. As I understand, in 2017, the share of digital payments was just 1%,
Yes.
which means 99% were just using cash payments.
Yes.
Fast forward to present day, where are we now?
Fast forward to 2024, we are now at 52.8%, coming from 1% in 2017. So again, thanks to the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas and to the entire fintech industry, because we have really collaborated to hit that target. Because as you may know, BSP came up with its digital payments transformation roadmap, where it called for two goals. One is to shift at least 50% of retail financial transactions to digital and onboard at least 70% of Filipino adults to the formal financial system. So only one of those two goals have been achieved.
Yes,
so
that's
which is
right.
that digital
That's right.
payments.
Almost there.
Yeah.
So these metrics set by the BSP were established in 2021, and these are goals to achieve by 2023.
Yes.
And of those, the two metrics were to convert retail financial transactions to digital, which we've done.
Yes.
So we've checked that one. The next one was a little more challenging. The goal was to onboard at least 70% of Filipino adults to the formal financial sector by 2023.
Yes.
It's 2024, and we've accomplished 52.8%. What does that say?
Well, it's definitely an accolade for all the industry players, for the entire ecosystem, because if we are to compare that with other ASEAN peers, Philippines is definitely much ahead, and we are very thankful because we have a very dynamic and proactive regulatory bodies, of course being led by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, and but I think having to onboard Filipinos to have transactional accounts is one thing, but having them to use it and make it sustainable is another thing. That's why the collective effort of industry players is very critical here to make sure that we can further promote its usage.
Mm-hmm. Now, talking about this space, there are 6 existing digital banking licenses in the country. And in 2025, we're going to be adding 4
Yes.
more for a total of 10. So 6 now, 10 by 2025, 2 unicorns, GCash and Maya. How would you describe the landscape at present, and how do you expect it to change with the onboarding of 4 more players?
Definitely competition will be much, much stiffer because while we have the 6, you have Maya Bank, we have Uno Digital Bank, Uno Bank, GoTime, Overseas Filipino Bank, and of course Maya. But of course GCash is not a licensed digital bank player. And having to have another 4 of them by starting next year will definitely, make the competition more exciting. But it boils down to one thing. It now gives the consumers, the Filipinos, more options. And I think the bottom line here is really on how to further promote inclusive digital finance.
Interesting that you mentioned our biggest player in this industry doesn't even have a digital banking license, GCash. How are they able to circumvent that?
Well, it's not circumventing. It's they have a different license.
Okay.
So they have an EMI license. They have lending license. Because as you know, GCash would have its GXI, which is the wallet. They have Fuse, which is the lending arm, and they are practically covered by all of this, by these licenses, no. And as you know, GCash also partnered with quite a number of banks, no, and of course, they are not the ones doing the deposit taking, but the bank partners that they have. So, and I think it really boils down to how you would want to push your business model at the end of the day. And for them, it's working for them, and it's working for some. And I think one of the things that we would want to highlight here is the fact that we're also aspiring to have more unicorns. Of course, GCash is a $5 billion US dollar, valuation. I think Maya now is around 1.5 to 2 billion US dollars. But if you are to compare that with other ASEAN neighbors or other global players or global countries or global economies, they have more than 100 or even 1,000 unicorns out there. So that's why we want to have more than 2 unicorns in the Philippines.
Okay, more to come, hopefully.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned the business model, and that's a lot of this. How do we make sure that the profitability comes, but at the same time balancing things like growth and financial sustainability? I know that this industry, profitability, they're a little hard pressed.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about the profitability constraints in this sector?
There was a study released, no, and it says globally, it was a global study amongst digital players or digital banks worldwide, and it says that less than 1% of those digital banks operating globally would be profitable. So it remains to be a challenge for most of the players. And while trying to balance your aspiration or your advocacy in terms of having to scale inclusive digital finance, definitely your sustainability in terms of growth, in terms of bottom line, would have to be critical as well, right? So I think your business model of having to ensure that you cut on costs, especially it being digital, you are not practically allowed to have brick and mortar branches. So that alone will save you so much cost, right? And I think it boils down also to having to have a very good or amazing or awesome customer proposition at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. How many Filipinos have adapted to digital, Lito? I mean, there are 3 channels we're looking at here. We're looking at payments, loans, and digital insurance. Where are we in this regard?
So you mentioned 3, no? So payments, lending, and insurance, no? On payments, as I've said, about 52.8%. We have now shifted the payments to digital by as much as 52.8%. But there remains to be a challenge on the lending side, because while there would be around 44% of Filipinos that would have loans, no, but 4.4% of that would only be loans coming from the banks, or people are practically getting their loans from banks. Because what it really indicates now is that for most Filipinos, they still do not have that credit footprint or credit score. So they are now victimized by the loan sharks, by the informal lenders, etc. So that's why, in partnership with regulators, specifically the Securities Exchange Commission or SEC, we are now moving towards having to promote the value of having to create your own financial credit footprint, no? Especially for our new to credit individuals. Because at the end of the day, what is really critical is for us to be able to provide that credit, responsive and responsible credit for every Filipino, no? And that is one of the fabrics of having to push for financial inclusion in the country. So that's why, again, I think the overarching subject here is about financial education, right? On how we can tell ordinary Filipinos, especially in geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas, on the value of having to create your own credit footprint. So because you really have to provide credit, especially for MSMEs, for for individuals, and that really propels growth in the countryside.
Yeah. One of the enablers of this was the digital national ID system. Before, people just had driver's license or passports, and not everybody had access to this. If you were a farmer, why would you have a passport? Even a driver's license is not necessary. But now, with the with this digital ID system, now people have the means to register and be part of the digital, the fintech industry.
Yes.
Can you talk to us about how the national ID system has paved the way for digital inclusion?
Yes, I mean, one of the enablers, or the great enablers of financial inclusion is really the PhilSys ID, the national ID system, because as you said, you don't expect a farmer or a fisher folk to have passports or driver's license, and the very reason why we are promoting financial inclusion is practically for the unbanked and underserved Filipinos. So with with the introduction of PhilSys, it now becomes your basic ID. That it will not be a requirement for you to be able to open accounts. And for us, what we are using is what we call the EKYC, Electronic Know Your Customer, and that will now become your basic ID requirement, so that everyone in Juana de la Cruz in far-flung areas in the country will now have to have access to financial services.
Yeah, and then they have access to cheaper supplies and everything on the e-commerce platform, which is huge in the Philippines.
They can pay and be paid.
Yeah, they can pay and they can be paid, and it's huge because the Philippines is e-commerce it's like we're one of the leading countries in the world in terms of e-commerce. Yeah, all right. Okay, we're going to be taking a quick break. Industry Beacon, we'll be right back. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Industry Beacon, where we continue our discussion with Lito Villanueva, the co-founder and chairman of the Fintech Alliance Philippines and executive vice president at RCBC, as we explore the future of fintech and its impact on Filipinos. Okay, Lito, 10% of our GDP, about 10% is from OFW remittances. That's about 37 billion pesos annually. Can you tell us about how going digital can help bring down the cost of these OFW remittances?
Well, we have seen the growth of our inward remittance volume. Now, as you said, it's $38 billion US, and it's still growing. In fact, even during COVID, it kept on growing. And definitely, we are looking on ways on how to further support our migrant workers, especially in terms of cross-border remittances. And, having to push the digitalization in payments will definitely drive down the cost of remittance, right? And as you may know, there have been reports that even around 10% of our remittance volume are now being facilitated through blockchain or crypto, etc. But the thing here is that still quite a huge number or a chunk of those transactions are done the usual way. But the thing here is that we have seen also the exponential growth of digital channels insofar as having to provide or transfer funds to their loved ones in the Philippines. So again, one of the pain points that we're addressing is having to reduce the cost of sending money back home.
Realistically, how much of a reduction can we expect given digital payment, the digital payment platform?
You'll be surprised because we are now seeing that 30 to 40% reduction in cost of remittance have been recorded insofar as having to use digital platforms, because it also provide additional benefit, because aside from lowering down the cost, you also are ensured of security and reliability and transparency. So these would be some of the features of going digital, because as I've said, in going digital, there's so much transparency there because there is an audit trail of your transactions, etc. And definitely that's one thing that we are very supportive about.
Yeah, the audit trail is nice because when you'd use cash, you don't have that on hand
and
all the time if you lose the receipts. Yes, okay. Now, on to the barriers in this industry. Of course, there's the digital infrastructure. And then there's also the high cost of telcos in the country, right? Can you talk to us about the challenges in this space and how we could possibly work with the government and the private sector to minimize the hurdles?
Yeah. Well, that's why one of the priority bills of this administration that we are now supporting is the Konektadong Pinoy, that now calls for players in the industry to really boost our our capabilities on the telco side, no, on digital infrastructure, because as you may know, we have multiple islands in the country, and quite a number of, still around 35% of our island barangays or island towns in the Philippines remain to be not connected. No? So that's why, for example, in our case for RCBC, we have RCBC ATM Go. 10% of our merchant partners in those far-flung barangays are practically using the Starlink of Elon Musk. And because that is the satellite-powered or satellite-enabled connectivity. And another item here is also security, cybersecurity. That's why if there is one thing that the industry would share amongst each other, even amongst competitors, is actually how we can share data and information about how to prevent cyber fraud and cyber crime. Because if there's one thing that the industry protects with its life, is trust. Because we need to ensure that trust is imbibed amongst all players in the industry, because that's the only commodity that we actually offer our consumers. Because consumer protection is key in sustaining the growth of digital payments or digital transformation.
Yeah, trust is everything. Okay, Lito, on the topic of digital salary disbursements, we've seen that trend coming on already. With the proliferation of e-wallets, do you think that this trend will be more of the norm in the future?
Yes, it's growing so fast, and it's growing exponentially. And while big enterprises are now into digital salary disbursements, the call to action now is on how to also encourage more MSMEs to offer the same, right? But you'll be surprised that for some MSMEs that would have 5, 10, 20 employees, for them it may be too informal, but having to even have that person-to-person or peer-to-peer transfer is the in thing, right, for the past couple of years. So I think this will definitely grow further, and eventually, who knows, it could be 99% digital disbursements of salaries.
Yeah.
Because it's more convenient.
Speaking of digital disbursements, it's that time of the year, it's the holidays, when people typically give the traditional red envelope.
Yeah.
Are you seeing a lot of digital ang paos?
Yes. I think, 20-30% could be digital ang pao, especially for digital native individuals. Philippines being a very young demographic, young population, with a median age of 24 years old. I mean, you have quite a number of millennials, Gen Z or Gen Alpha, who would be asking or mandating or forcing their nino or ninang just transfer their aguinaldo, right? So I think the digital ang pao this holiday season will be the in thing. Yeah.
Okay, still on the holiday season, if you could ask Santa for one big fintech innovation for the Philippines, what would that be, Lito?
Okay, I would wish from Santa this holiday season would be free Wi-Fi for all. As we know, Filipinos are, before we're the number one texting capital. The texting capital of the world, the social media, savvy individuals. And for us, the number one requirement for most Filipinos would be free Wi-Fi. So again, connectivity is key. And that's why having to have free Wi-Fi will further boost digital adoption, especially on financial services.
Okay. And what's your vision for the fintech industry in the Philippines?
That there will be more unicorns in the country. Definitely, we would project that it could be, say, 10, 20 unicorns along the way. And there will be sustained effort to further boost digital adoption amongst Filipinos. And that will be the day when we see every Filipino with a smile, and that they would say that digital transformation has really impacted their lives in terms of having to uplift their everyday living.
Yeah, it is a very dynamic industry, and it has the power to reach where we have not been reached before in this country. So thank you for the work that you do in this space, Lito. It was really nice to have you on board today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you, Lito Villanueva of the Fintech Alliance of the Philippines. And that's it for today's show. I'm Maiki Oreta. Catch the Bilyonaryo News Channel on Free TV Channel 31 and on cable via Cignal Channel 24. Thank you for watching the Bilyonaryo News Channel, always on top.